Hi there folks, welcome to another clip here on my YouTube channel. Before we get started with today's topic, that's the euro versus the Norwegian krone, so the euro NOK, and something like an update, and just if you compare that to a couple of clips I already did about that currency pair, I'd like to invite you to be a member of this channel, to be a subscriber. It is absolutely free, and the only thing you have to do is just to hit the red button down here at the platform, as you can see that on the YouTube website, and you'll be a member of it. Very much appreciated, and as well very much appreciated if you leave some thumbs up for this clip. Useless to say, after vacations of course you try to get in after a couple of days and trying to get more information about the markets, what was going on, because you're not willing to spend as much as time as you usually do for markets research and stuff like that. So did I. So 14 days off the table, nothing like beaches, like alligators and whatever. You may check that on my Twitter channel. And of course, not too much time spent with analysts and talks about markets and all this kind of chatter. So the first thing you usually do is, of course, check some fundamentals, check some technicals, and that's what we do right here. So in case, speaking about the euro NOK currency pair, I did that with the following chart technical part with a combination of the fundamentals. So there will be no fundamental outro as usual old clips. In case of the euro, just have a look at the possible hikes of the ECB in the foreseeable future or until the rest of the year. Already 2 hikes possible, like the markets tell us. In case of the Norwegian krone, have a look at the Norwegian central bank, so the Norges Bank, and have a look at the monetary policy reports, and on top of that, not to forget about the movements of the biggest state fund of the world, the government pension fund from Norway, so the old fund. All right, let's have a look at the chart technical and fundamental part right now. Active research. You see the naked euro NOK chart. As you can see, that is a platform from guidance here is a daily chart. You see 6-month picture and the daily candles like the candlesticks. And of course, you can simply add some kind of horizontals and trend lines if you like, just combining that, for example. But the far more important stuff I already use is the typical Fibonacci analysis. And you just check out a couple of points from the downside here and the last upside from that kind of the last year. You see there is this high from 1070.44.6 and the low from 943.357. If you check that out, this is the low from the 8th of April 22. So these two levels combined, and typically the platform gives you some retracement levels. The more important 61.8 or the 38.2 level. Not to be added a couple of retracements. You can add that from the 76.4 level or the 23.6 manually if you like. Of course, you can leave it as well. We will be putting in some let's say averages, so an exponential moving average, so the EMA, for example, will be adding one more EMA, and the typical stuff you might do is something like the typical EMA 100. If you just check out that one here, that will be possibly doing some other colors just to have a nice setup. The typical is the blue one, and you'll be adding another EMA, that's the EMA 200, and you'll be adding that usually in another color. I usually use the so-called red color. So just to see what is going on, where the possible averages right now are. On top of that, you might add the typical oscillator. So the well-known one is the typical relative strength index, adding that one as well. And of course, not to forget, change some colors, or even make this kind of a line a little bit more brighter. All right, so closing that kind of window and just looking at the chart the typical movements in the euro NOK in the last month back in the year 2021, so 2021, you see on top of that in the RSI relative strength index, you see a couple of overbought territories here. You see a lot of territories in that kind of a zone, and always you had something like a chance to do something like a euro NOK short. So find a little bit more than just an entry point regarding, for example, longer term or mid-term carry trade moves. So you see it's a 1070s just going in that kind of overbought scenario here, and checking in for a carry trade setup for a first point, for a first starting point. And you see that this is something kind of useful using the oscillators like the relative strength index. You can see there is the 1070 move even down to that marker right here, maximum marker in right 966, 965 area. And the same stuff happened here. You will see that there's overbought territories all the time here, and this would be something like a next entry point or a new entry point if you already got out right here. And of course, if you are something like a position trader, these are zones, possible zones for a carry trade scenario, just to widen or to add if you have enough ammo to do so, of course. No advice, nothing like advice here, like always, like I always tell you that. It's just a way of possibly trading that kind of currency pair in the longer term. It's nothing like scalping. I'm not talking about scalping and day trading in that kind of a currency pair. I would like to tell you that it is something like useful to have that kind of a currency pair, for example, swing trading or position trading setups, or even for a carry trade. Carry trade, why? And especially to new buys, if you like to bet on a stronger crown, Norwegian crown, you will be having a euro NOK short. If you're betting on a relief or a move of a stronger euro, you'll be betting on euro NOK long. So especially if it comes to the next steps into rate scenarios and rate differentials and new rate differentials, and possibly not only widening interest rate scissors, possibly the other way around. Just because the ECB already spoke about that. The ECB officials in the last weeks spoke about that more and more regarding the next steps. So markets tend to price in something like 2 rate hikes in the year 2022. So that could bring us to an interest rate of 0.5%. And getting rid of this negative rates for savers, especially if you park money in the euro, you still pay a negative rate of 0.5%, so that's the current negative rate at the ECB. This could be something like at 0 to the end of the year, or even in a positive territory, even up to 0.25%. So this is nothing like hammered in stone. This is what markets are telling us. This is what markets are talking about, having a chat about, and this is what something like implications like stock markets, for example, CME or a couple of other markets like that tell us. So you see there is that kind of overbought scenario right here in the last 2 days. You check that out in the chart picture here, and you see there's something like a little invitation of a new starting point to the downside, possibly just for a couple of days, or even if you like to do so for a longer time. You'll be seeing that. Of course, it is quite useful if you're some pips away from your entry point. You could try to find more of something like a feedback for yourself and relief, that you can move the stop loss to your entry point as fast as possible, so that there is nothing about to happen and you're not going to be dragged into the red again. Okay. The interest rate forecast for the Norwegian crown, so for the Norges Bank, right now markets are telling something about 1.5 to 1.75% until the end of the year. So check out the rate differentials until the end of the year. What could happen if we really get into that territory of 0.5% for the ECB and into the territory of 1.75% for the Norwegian krone. So there is still a huge rate differential between those two, so that could maintain that kind of a level right here. The far more important stuff is happening at the government pension fund, and about all this kind of huge oil income from state of Norway, and somehow they need to diversify from the income and diversify into a lot of foreign exchange, so a lot of currencies, just to balance it out. And you can simply have a look at the Norges Bank website to get more information about that, and on top of that at the website of the government pension fund. So you will be learning that the government pension fund is selling NOK massively, and possibly doing that until the rest of the year. That's what they are talking about, or what you could simply say some big kind of implications, negative implications for the Norwegian krone around the corner, if there's still selling pressure somehow. So they're talking about a couple of central banks, a couple of investment banks are talking about 2.5, in direction 3 billion NOK a day on average until the rest of the year. So this is something like someone is always pressing the buttons and selling NOK, and of course this would lead to a little bit more pressure for the NOK. So it is nothing, again, this is nothing like rocket science, and it is on top nothing like hammer and stone that NOK is going to be stronger all the time. Just from the rate perspective, it could be stronger. Just from the current commodity prices, especially like oil, it could be stronger and remain stronger. And if you just compare the GDP numbers, inflation numbers, and all that stuff together, it looks like Norway is much more in a comfortable situation, especially regarding energy efficiency and energy security, than most of the countries in the Eurozone. So that's simply the big advantage Norway has. And of course, Norway is the richest nation, the richest country, and the oil fund, the government pension fund, is the biggest fund of the world. So a lot of stuff speaks for the NOK, for the Norwegian krone, and a lot of stuff speaks against the euro. So every time you see something like a huge move back up from the euro NOK, this might be really an invitation to be on the step in to a new euro NOK short again. Okay. As always, this is nothing like advice. I thank you very much for your time and your attention, and of course wish you a happy weekend and a perfect start into the new week with lots of pips and loads of pips. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye. See you next time.